Hey everyone, how are you? Before we start this video, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit like. Your subscription and your like are very important for the channel. Today we're going to do a complete analysis of this movie, the Odyssey 2026. So, without further ado, let's get started with our full analysis right now. In the movie, one of the oldest stories in Western literature comes to the big screen courtesy of director Christopher Nolan. The Odyssey is an epic poem attributed to Homer that tells the story of the Greek hero Odysseus, Matt Damon, on his way back home after the Trojan War. The warrior faces mythical creatures and gods on his epic journey back to where his wife Penelope, and Hathaway, awaits him. The King of Ithaca recounts his voyage, in which he encounters beings such as the Cyclops Polyphemus, the Sirens, and the sorceress/goddess Circe. The big release of the summer holiday season, both in theaters and at the box office, already has a date, July 29th, the premiere of Spider-Man: One More Day, with part of its cast overlapping with another highly anticipated cinematic event, Christopher Nolan's adaptation of the Odyssey for the big screen. Alongside these holiday releases set to excite kids and teens, children will also have plenty of options, whether current hits, like Minions and Monsters, or Disney offerings, such as Moana, now in live-action form, and titles celebrating Paw Patrol and Marsupilami, the classic Belgian comic book character. Fans of homegrown talent on screen can turn to Supergirl, with a budget of $170 million, which has already topped $100 million at the box office in just over 2 weeks, and which features Brazilian-descended screenwriter Ana Nogueira, based on the graphic novel illustrated by Bilquis. Evely, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. The horror genre, with hits like Evil Dead, Burning in Backrooms, is gaining popularity in Brazil, with productions like The Legacy of Narcissa, recently released and starring Paula Oliveira. On the other end of the spectrum, the holidays can be enjoyed with a laugh, as with the film The Emerging, by Su Chien, which follows the fate of a wealthy couple suddenly forced to work for their former employees. Check out below some of the movies hitting theaters this holiday season. The Odyssey, filmed in Greece and Italy and condensed into nearly 3 hours, The Odyssey hits theaters July 16th, with all the grandeur promised by the visionary director of Batman and Oppenheimer, an Oscar-winning production in categories such as Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor, Christopher Nolan. That scale is reflected in the cast, with heavyweight industry names like Zendaya, Jon Bernthal, and Tom Holland, not to mention Matt Damon, and Hathaway, Robert Pattinson, Charlize Theron, and Lupita Nyong'o. This adaptation of Homer's poem, centered on Odysseus, has already been read aloud publicly abroad in a nearly 12-hour marathon reading, and on the big screen it will be condensed into nearly 3 hours. Nymphs, sirens, a cyclops, sorceresses, and the Trojan War will all be featured in the plot, in which, over the course of a decade, the King of Ithaca is separated from his beloved Penelope. Spider-Man: A New Day. The strength of this franchise, which has grossed nearly $3.9 billion since 2017, lies in Tom Holland's charisma and his chemistry with Zendaya. In the new Marvel film, premiering July 29th and directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Peter Parker is practically non-existent, since it's Spider-Man. Almost full-time, who insists on a melancholic existence spanning 4 years of uninterrupted dedication to protecting New York City. Different kinds of crime promise to fill the screen, dominated by actors Jon Bernthal, famous for his role in The Bear, who will play the Punisher, Mark Ruffalo, Hulk, in an even more muscular version, Jacob Batalon, Nerdy Ned, and Sadie Sink, widely believed by many to be playing the mutant Jean Grey. The film is expected to feature Mary Jane, Gwen Stacy, Spider-Man, and Daredevil, according to widespread speculation. Christopher Nolan delivers a grand, elegant adaptation of Ulysses' epic story in The Odyssey. In his latest project, The Odyssey, filmmaker Christopher Nolan presents a new version of the mythological epic of Odysseus, with a star-studded cast that includes Matt Damon, Anne Hathaway, Tom Holland, and Zendaya. To adapt Homer's 3,000-year-old poem, the award-winning director of Oppenheimer wanted to go all in on scale. The Odyssey, premiering this week in Brazil, was filmed across 6 countries, Greece, Morocco, Italy, with some scenes shot at sea and using IMAX cameras, a format that offers unique resolution but is technically very demanding. The figures circulating about the budget are also colossal: $250 million, 1.27 billion reais. It was a difficult film, but it had to be. It's The Odyssey. Nolan joked in an interview in Paris with various media outlets, including AFP. The Odyssey tells the story of Odysseus's, Matt Damon, turbulent return to his island of Ithaca, where his wife Penelope, and Hathaway, and son Telemachus, Tom Holland, face attacks from suitors vying for the throne. The decisions he makes aren't always the right ones, which makes him very flawed and very human, Matt Damon said. At the Paris premiere. Guilt. I'm always looking for gaps to fill in film culture, and I was quite surprised to realize that Greek mythology, especially the Odyssey, a foundational text of Western literature, had rarely been adapted for film, explains the 55-year-old British filmmaker. In 2004, Wolfgang Petersen's film Troy tackled this war, with Brad Pitt playing Achilles. 2 decades later, The Return, starring Ralph Fiennes and Juliette Binoche, told the story of the hero's return to Ithaca from a more intimate perspective. Nolan opts for a spectacular staging to tell the story of Ulysses' 20 years of wandering, a fate that, in some ways, resembles that of some of his earlier films. Just like Batman in The Dark Knight, the King of Ithaca gradually becomes a lone hero tempted by vengeance. And, like Robert Oppenheimer, consumed by the devastation of the atomic bomb he helped create, Ulysses struggles with his remorse. What struck me as interesting was the idea of a person carrying the guilt of having changed the world, and not necessarily for the better, Nolan says, who also sees in the Odyssey a timeless reflection on what unites human beings. Respect for people and their rights is what defines civilization, the filmmaker reflects. It's a golden rule underpinning the principles of democracy and human rights. When we start to forget it, everything falls apart. Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey impresses in early reactions and is being hailed as a great epic. The new film from the director of Oppenheimer is earning praise for its scale, its cast, and its action sequences. The film hits theaters in July 2026. Christopher Nolan's new film, The Odyssey, has already started turning heads even before its official theatrical release. Early impressions from special screenings suggest the film could be one of the director's most important projects, praising its visual grandeur, star-studded cast, and its adaptation of the classic poem attributed to Homer. The production, which brings together names like Matt Damon, Tom Holland, Zendaya, and Anne Hathaway, promises to bring one of humanity's best-known stories to the screen, Odysseus' journey as he tries to get home after the Trojan War. Nolan's new epic is earning praise even before its premiere. Early reactions note that The Odyssey boasts a scale considered unprecedented in Christopher Nolan's filmography. Critics and guests at early screenings mainly praised the battle scenes, the visual effects, the cinematography, the score, the powerful performances, the IMAX experience. Some reviews have called the film one of the most ambitious productions the filmmaker has ever made. The story tells one of the greatest adventures in literature. Based on the classic epic poem attributed to Homer, the film follows Odysseus, also known as Ulysses, on his long attempt to return to Ithaca after his victory in the Trojan War. On his way home, the hero faces challenges involving mythological creatures, dangers at sea, and the wrath of the gods, especially Poseidon, who tries to stop his journey. This work is considered one of the foundational tales of Western literature and has received numerous adaptations throughout history. The cast includes major Hollywood names. Besides Matt Damon in the lead role, the film boasts a cast packed with stars. Among the confirmed names are Tom Holland as Telemachus, Anne Hathaway as Penelope, Zendaya, Robert Pattinson, Lupita Nyong'o, Charlize Theron, Mia Goth, John Leguizamo. The production is expected to use these characters to explore not just adventure, but also themes like leadership, family, survival, and the conflict between humans and higher powers. Christopher Nolan bets big on a massive production. After the success of Oppenheimer, which won major international awards, Nolan was given great creative freedom to develop his new project. The Odyssey returns to a traditional cinematic experience, with heavy use of IMAX cameras and scenes designed for the big screen. The director is known for prioritizing practical effects and extensive use of real footage, avoiding relying solely on computer graphics. The film promises a different kind of cinematic experience. Early impressions also highlighted the production's technical impact. The cinematography, handled by Hoyt van Hoytema, a frequent Nolan collaborator, was singled out as one of the film's biggest strengths. The production was filmed using IMAX technology, reinforcing the goal of turning Odysseus' journey into a large-scale visual experience. When does The Odyssey premiere? The film is scheduled to hit theaters on July 16, 2026. The production is expected to be one of the year's biggest releases, largely due to the director's prestige, the cast, and the original work that inspired the story. Understanding the context, the Odyssey represents yet another attempt by Hollywood to adapt great classic stories for a modern audience. Christopher Nolan, known for films like Interstellar, Dunkirk, and Oppenheimer, now takes on the challenge of turning one of humanity's oldest narratives into a grand cinematic spectacle. The promise is to blend mythology, adventure, and human drama into a top-tier production, while still preserving the visual and narrative style that has defined the director's career. The Odyssey, the new film. Directed by Christopher Nolan, premieres on July 16 and features a star-studded cast that includes Lupita Nyong'o, Matt Damon, Anne Hathaway, Zendaya, Robert Pattinson, and Elliot Page. In recent days, a photo supposedly taken during a promotional event for the film has gone viral on social media, accompanied by comments suggesting it's an official image of the female cast. The image shows Lupita Nyong'o, Anne Hathaway, Elliot Page, Zendaya, and Samantha Morton together. After months of anticipation, The Odyssey, Christopher Nolan's new film, is finally arriving in theaters. The biggest production of the Oscar winner's career, this epic was filmed in various countries using the latest IMAX camera technology and is already sparking debate well ahead of its release. But one question remains: is it a remake? A sequel? Or an original story? The answer lies in a book written nearly 3,000 years ago, a work that helped shape virtually all of Western storytelling. Below, we've put together everything you need to know before the premiere. Don't miss it! The Odyssey. You might also like The Odyssey. Christopher Nolan's decision reignites debate between critics and influencers. Understand the controversy and what it reveals about film coverage today. Remake, adaptation, or original story? The short answer is simple: The Odyssey is not a remake. It's also not a sequel to another film, nor an original story created by Nolan. The film directly adapts The Odyssey, an epic poem attributed to the Greek writer Homer, composed between the 8th and 7th centuries BC, considered one of the pillars of Western literature. In practice, the project occupies the same space as new versions of classics like Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, or Frankenstein. The story stays the same. What changes is the filmmaker's perspective. Universal announced the project as an adaptation of Homer's foundational saga, making clear that Nolan intends to bring the original poem to the screen, not just use it as inspiration. The Odyssey. So, what exactly is the Odyssey? Along with the Iliad, also attributed to Homer, the Odyssey is among the most important texts in the history of literature. While the Iliad recounts the events of the Trojan War, the Odyssey tells what happens after the conflict, Odysseus's, Ulysses, in the Latin tradition, long and grueling journey home to the island of Ithaca. What should have taken only a few days turns into a roughly 10-year journey. Along the way, the hero faces the Cyclops Polyphemus, the Sirens, the sorceress Circe, the monsters Scylla and Charybdis, the nymph Calypso, and the constant fury of the god Poseidon, while Penelope stays home resisting the pressure to accept a new husband. It's a story of adventure, survival, cunning, and, above all, coming home. Do you need to know the Iliad? No. But it helps a lot. Technically, the Odyssey works as a continuation of the Iliad, since it begins right after the fall of Troy. So having at least a basic understanding of who characters like Menelaus, Helen, Agamemnon, and Achilles are clears up some events. Even so, the poem was designed to stand on its own, and everything suggests the same will be true of Nolan's film. What is Nolan adapting? Christopher Nolan has said very little about the project, which is typical of his career. Universal's official press release describes The Odyssey as an epic mythological action film shot around the world with new IMAX technology, while the promotional material emphasizes that this is the first full adaptation of Homer's saga, conceived specifically for IMAX screens. According to the Hollywood press, the director intends to preserve the poem's main events, characters, and narrative structure, though of course, any film adaptation introduces changes in pacing, dramatic structure, and character development. 5 movies to watch before if you want to go to the theater with a better grasp of this universe. A few productions will help a lot. Ulysses, 1954, starring Kirk Douglas, remains the most classic film adaptation of Homer's poem. The Odyssey, 1997. The miniseries directed by Andrei Konchalovsky remains one of the most complete and faithful versions of the original work. Troy, 2004, doesn't adapt the Odyssey, but it sets the stage for the Trojan War and introduces several characters important for understanding the world Odysseus encounters at the end of the conflict. Oh brother, where art thou? 2000, the Coen brothers, Joel and Ethan, have never hidden the fact that they made a modern reinterpretation of Odysseus's journey. George Clooney plays a character named Ulysses Everett McGill, while several episodes from the poem are reimagined during the Great Depression in the United States. The Return, 2024, starring Ralph Fiennes and Juliette Binoche, focuses specifically on Odysseus's arrival in Ithaca, functioning almost as a companion piece to the final moments of Homer's narrative. A story that has never stopped being told. It's worth remembering that perhaps the most curious thing about the Odyssey is exactly this: even though it was written nearly 3,000 years ago, its influence is still felt throughout virtually all of popular culture. The structure of the hero's journey, later systematized by Joseph Campbell in The Hero with 1,000 Faces, 1949, finds in Homer's poem. One of its oldest and most influential examples. It's no coincidence that its fingerprints show up in works as different as Star Wars and The Lord of the Rings. So Nolan's new film doesn't aim to replace earlier versions or completely reinvent the story. After all, few works have endured for nearly 3,000 years and continue to inspire books, series, and films. The Odyssey is one of them. The Odyssey, did you like this content? Then don't miss Papo de Cinema to keep up with everything happening in the world of film, TV, festivals, awards, and more. We also recommend following our official social media profiles to stay up to date with entertainment news. The Odyssey, How to Survive the Sirens Song, or The Art of Storytelling according to Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan turns Homer's poem into a grand, popular, physical, and surprisingly accessible spectacle. It's not a masterpiece, it has underused characters and some rushed episodes, but it's an excellent film about adventure, guilt, survival, and coming home. Want to share this text? Use the sharing tools found on the article page. All content from Viso is protected by copyright under Portuguese law. Support quality journalism, don't share in violation of copyright. https://viso.atualidade/cultura/odisseia como sobrevivere ao canto das Sirens ou orteda cantar histórias segundo Christopher Nolan. There's a very simple way to survive the Odyssey's siren song. Don't believe everything Christopher Nolan promises us. Or everything his fans promise on his behalf. The film isn't the eighth wonder of the world, it doesn't reinvent Homer, it doesn't change the history of cinema forever, and it probably won't cure your back pain over its nearly 3-hour runtime, 172 minutes. It is, simply, and that's no small thing, an excellent, intelligent, physical, and moving popular epic, made by a director who still believes a movie theater can be a place of wonder, not just an extension of a phone or a tablet. Want to share this text? Use the sharing tools found on the article page. All content from Viso is protected by copyright under Portuguese law. Support quality journalism, don't share in violation of copyright. https://viso.atualidade/cultura/odisseia como sobrevivere ao canto das Sirens ou orteda cantar histórias segundo Christopher Nolan. Nolan takes one of the foundational texts of Western culture and does the hardest thing possible, makes it clear without dumbing it down, spectacular without turning it into a video game, and instructive without showing up with a pointer to explain who Zeus is, where Ithaca is, or why no one in that family can simply go home or live in peace. The story is well known, even to those who've never read Homer. Ulysses, or Odysseus, returns from the Trojan War after helping conquer the city with his famous horse, history's first great feat of military strategy. The problem is that the journey home takes years and crosses seas, monsters, sorceresses, wrathful gods, irresistible women, and decisions that confirm an old rule: a wise man can avoid many disasters, but he can hardly avoid himself. Matt Damon plays Ulysses without the pose of a Greek statue. He's strong, of course, but above all tired, stubborn, and full of guilt. He's not Achilles, the ideal warrior, invincible, fearless, and fast, nor does he try to be. He wins less with the sword than with words, strategy, lies, and the ability to improvise when everything goes wrong, which, in fact, happens with admirable regularity throughout the film. Damon gives him the presence of a veteran who's witnessed too much death to still fully believe in his own legend. The film's Ulysses doesn't come home simply because he loves Penelope, played by Anne Hathaway, or because he misses Ithaca. He also comes home because he needs to know whether there's still a home the man he's become can return to. The Trojan War appears in flashback, and Nolan refuses to present it as a clean or glorious victory. The invasion is brutal, bloody, and morally shameful. The horse represents not just Odysseus's cunning, but also the origin of the guilt that will haunt him throughout his journey. Nolan is less interested in the triumphant hero than in the man who's beginning to understand the price of his victory. Monsters without a theme park. The best-known episodes of Homer's Odyssey are all present, though not all play out the same way. The encounter with the Cyclops is one of the film's best moments, blending tension, cunning, and raw violence without unnecessary flourishes. The monster is imposing, but Nolan doesn't let the special effects replace the dramatic tension. What matters isn't just the creature's size, but how Odysseus realizes he can't defeat it through force alone. Circe, played by Samantha Morton, also departs from the more conventional portrayal of the seductive sorceress. Ulysses approaches her to save his men and seduces her with the caution of someone who knows desire can be a trap. Morton gives the character a cold intelligence and a wary sensuality, though the episode could have been developed further. The Sirens song, however, doesn't live up to expectations. The sequence is effective, but too brief and less unsettling than you'd expect from a film that would surely find in this episode one of its most striking promotional images. Nolan avoids the usual flood of digital effects and instead focuses on the physical tension of Ulysses bound to the mast. It's the right choice, but the scene could use a bit more danger, madness, and poison. Calypso, played by Charlize Theron, is undeniably an irresistible temptation. The nymph offers Odysseus love, immortality, and a paradise-like life on the island of Ogygia. Let's be honest, after a war, a Cyclops, a sorceress, storms, and several years surrounded by undisciplined men incapable of following sensible orders, staying behind with Charlize Theron on an island doesn't sound like the worst decision in the world. It's a romantic, heroic, and perhaps somewhat reckless choice. If he'd stayed with Calypso, the warrior would have finally rested, but the movie would have ended, and Homer would have lost the story. The house is still not lived in. In Ithaca, Penelope waits. And Hathaway manages to keep the character from being reduced to the typical faithful wife, standing by the loom like some ancient housewife. Her waiting is active, political, and dangerous. Penelope tries to preserve the household, protect her son Telemachus, played by Tom Holland, and hold off the suitors who moved in as guests and quickly started acting like they owned the place. Hathaway brings intelligence, resolve, and a touch of irony to the character. The relationship between Penelope and Ulysses is the film's emotional core, even though they spend most of the story apart. Nolan understands that the return only matters because someone stayed behind. And that waiting also wears you down, hurts, and changes you. Tom Holland plays Telemachus with just the right amount of fragility. He's a son who grew up with an absent father, one who's simultaneously become legend, promise, and family problem. Telemachus's faith that Odysseus is still alive is touching, even though the character doesn't always get the dramatic spotlight he deserves. Robert Pattinson has an absolute blast playing Antinous, the most dangerous of Penelope's suitors. He's elegant, manipulative, arrogant, and polished enough to make the threat even more unsettling. He doesn't storm into the house with a sword, he walks in with good manners, settles in, starts deciding the family's future, and has probably already picked out where he'll hang the paintings. John Leguizamo, as the loyal Eumaeus, brings humanity to the film. Through him, we understand that while epics may be led by kings, they always depend on the loyalty of those who, more fragile and nearly anonymous in society, guard doors, animals, and memories. Zendaya, as Athena, has a much smaller presence. The goddess appears almost as a protective shadow, an invisible force guiding Odysseus and Telemachus down the right path. Nolan's choice is interesting, the gods exist more as pressure than as characters, but Zendaya ends up appearing in the film mostly to fill out the poster. It's too much talent for such a small role. Great cinema, no miracles. Visually, The Odyssey is, without a doubt, a thrilling, dynamic, and impressive film. Nolan shoots ships, storms, caves, beaches, and battles with a physicality rarely seen in contemporary cinema. There's wind, water, wood, mud, stone, and genuinely exhausted bodies. When the men row, you feel the weight of the oars. When the sea threatens to swallow the ship, it never feels like someone just pressed a key on a computer. Shooting in 70mm IMAX gives the cinematography scale and detail, but Nolan mainly uses the format to bring the audience even closer to the characters. Matt Damon's and Anne Hathaway's faces matter just as much as the landscapes. The spectacle is there, but it doesn't take over the whole film. The score, as is often the case with Nolan, doesn't fully grasp the concept of restraint. There are moments when it seems to want to announce a scene's importance before the scene has had time to prove it. The director also still leans too heavily on exposition, some ideas repeat, some dialogue spells out what we already understand, and certain emotions are presented a bit too on the nose. The film still has too many characters left underdeveloped in mythic episodes with little room to breathe. Circe, Calypso, and Athena deserved more time. The Sirens needed more intensity. And there are moments where you feel Nolan is compressing the narrative structure so much that the film loses some of the mystery that also belongs to Homer. Even so, the Odyssey works. It has adventure, emotion, humor, violence, romance, and a strong historical and educational component. It helps illuminate the poem's moral universe: hospitality, honor, loyalty, cunning, arrogance, and homecoming, without turning a movie screening into a classics lecture. It's not Christopher Nolan's best film, nor, let's hope, the definitive Homer adaptation. But it's a great cinematic spectacle, made with intelligence and respect for the audience. A film capable of telling a nearly 3,000-year-old story as if it could still surprise us. And it can. Homer would find the American English strange, even with a bit of British accent, the volume of the music, and probably the price of an IMAX ticket. But he would recognize Ulysses, a clever, vain, deceitful, brave, and exhausted man who makes his way through monsters, wars, and temptations to discover a fairly simple truth. There's no journey harder than the one back home. Christopher Nolan reflects on the Odyssey's runtime. As we get closer to the premiere of Christopher Nolan's new film, The Odyssey, the director keeps sharing a few more details about it. The Odyssey is an adaptation of Homer's literary work of the same name, telling the story of Odysseus, King of Ithaca, after the Trojan War. The Odyssey is an epic historical film that follows Odysseus's 10-year journey home after the Trojan War. Along that long road, he encounters gods, monsters, and great challenges as he tries to reunite with his wife and reclaim his kingdom. The film's cast specifically includes names like Matt Damon as Ulysses, Tom Holland, Telemachus, Anne Hathaway, Penelope, Zendaya, Athena, Lupita Nyong'o, Robert Pattinson, Charlize Theron, and others. Christopher Nolan has already begun promoting his epic, The Odyssey. In doing so, the director addressed a topic that's highly relevant to his work: runtime. There are plenty of examples of Christopher Nolan films running longer than 2 hours. Oppenheimer, 2023, his most recent film, even reached 3 hours. In this case, the director has already revealed that The Odyssey will run shorter than his previous film. However, he hasn't yet specified the exact runtime. Speaking to the Associated Press, Nolan said, "It's an epic film, as the subject demands, but it's shorter." The director added, "There's enormous pressure. Whoever directs The Odyssey takes on the hopes and dreams people around the world have for epic films, and that comes with huge responsibility. What I learned, making the Dark Knight trilogy, is that what people want from a movie about a beloved story with beloved characters is a solid, sincere take. They want to know the filmmaker gave it everything. I really pushed myself to make the best film possible." Nolan reportedly said earlier that he shot more than 609,000 meters of film, equivalent to over 20,000 minutes, much of it filmed at sea, over 91 days of shooting. In other words, it's quite possible a longer cut than the one originally released could surface down the line. Christopher Nolan delivers a grand, elegant adaptation of Ulysses' epic story in The Odyssey. The film adapts Homer's 3,000-year-old poem and stars Matt Damon, Anne Hathaway, Tom Holland, and Zendaya. In his latest project, The Odyssey, filmmaker Christopher Nolan presents a new version of the mythological epic of Odysseus, with a star-studded cast that includes Matt Damon, Anne Hathaway, Tom Holland, and Zendaya. To adapt Homer's 3,000-year-old poem, the award-winning director of Oppenheimer wanted to go all in on scale. The Odyssey, premiering this week in Brazil, was filmed across 6 countries: Greece, Morocco, Italy, with some scenes shot at sea and using IMAX cameras, a format that offers unique resolution but is technically very demanding. The figures circulating about the budget are also colossal: $250 million, 1.27 billion reais. It was a difficult film, but it had to be. It's the Odyssey. Nolan joked in an interview in Paris with various media outlets, including AFP. The Odyssey tells the story of Odysseus's, Matt Damon, turbulent return to his island of Ithaca, where his wife Penelope, and Hathaway, and son Telemachus, Tom Holland, face attacks from suitors vying for the throne. The decisions he makes aren't always the right ones, which makes him very flawed and very human, Matt Damon said at the Paris premiere. "I'm always looking for gaps to fill in film culture. And I was quite surprised to realize that Greek mythology, especially the Odyssey, a foundational text of Western literature, had rarely been adapted for film," explains the 55-year-old British filmmaker. In 2004, Wolfgang Petersen's film Troy tackled this war, with Brad Pitt playing Achilles. 2 decades later, The Return, starring Ralph Fiennes and Juliette Binoche, told the story of the hero's return to Ithaca from a more intimate perspective. Nolan opts for a spectacular staging to tell the story of Ulysses' 20 years of wandering, a fate that, in some ways, resembles that of some of his earlier films. Just like Batman in The Dark Knight, the King of Ithaca gradually becomes a lone hero tempted by vengeance. And, like Robert Oppenheimer, consumed by the devastation of the atomic bomb he helped create, Ulysses struggles with his remorse. What struck me as interesting was the idea of a person carrying the guilt of having changed the world, and not necessarily for the better, Nolan says, who also sees in the Odyssey a timeless reflection on what unites human beings. Respect for people and their rights is what defines civilization, the filmmaker reflects. It's a golden rule underpinning the principles of democracy and human rights. When we start to forget it, the Odyssey, meet the characters of Christopher Nolan's new film. The classic epic poem The Odyssey, attributed to the Greek poet Homer, is getting a new film adaptation from director Christopher Nolan. Known for productions like Oppenheimer, Interstellar, and Inception, the filmmaker is taking on a reinterpretation of one of the most influential narratives in Western literature. Beyond the story's epic scale, the production stands out for its star-studded Hollywood cast. Matt Damon, Anne Hathaway, Tom Holland, Zendaya, Robert Pattinson, and Charlize Theron are among the confirmed names bringing the characters of Greek mythology to life. Odysseus's journey is central to the story. The story's protagonist is Odysseus, Ulysses, played by Matt Damon. King of Ithaca, he tries to return to his kingdom after the end of the Trojan War. On his journey, he faces monsters, mythological creatures, storms, and the constant interference of the Olympian gods. Known for his intelligence and strategic skill, Odysseus is remembered in mythology as the mastermind behind the famous Trojan horse. While he faces countless challenges, his absence triggers a political crisis in Ithaca. Penelope and Telemachus hold the kingdom together. During the years Odysseus is away from home, Penelope, played by Anne Hathaway, must keep the kingdom stable. Several nobles begin vying for her hand in marriage, each looking to claim the throne of Ithaca. To delay her decision, Penelope resorts to the famous strategy of weaving a shroud by day and secretly unraveling it at night. Telemachus, played by Tom Holland, grows up practically without his father around. Throughout the story, he sets out on his own journey in search of news of Odysseus and matures as he faces the kingdom's hardships. The adaptation also includes key figures from Greek mythology. Zendaya plays Athena, goddess of wisdom and Odysseus's main ally, responsible for guiding him at several points on his journey. Among the challenges the hero faces are Polyphemus, Bill Irwin, the Cyclops son of Poseidon, Circe, Samantha Morton, a sorceress who turns men into animals, Calypso, Charlize Theron, a nymph who keeps Odysseus captive on her island for several years. These figures represent some of the best-known episodes from Homer's work and help build out the hero's long journey home. Conflicts in Ithaca also take center stage. While Odysseus struggles to make his way home, the situation in Ithaca grows worse. The main antagonist is Antinous, played by Robert Pattinson, leader of the suitors who occupy the palace and pressure Penelope to choose a new husband. The cast also includes John Bernthal as Menelaus, Benny Safdie as Agamemnon, John Leguizamo as Eumaeus, Himesh Patel as Eurylochus, Mia Goth as Melantho, Elliot Page as Sinon, Lupita Nyong'o plays 2 roles, Helen of Troy and Clytemnestra. Travis Scott plays a bard tasked with preserving and telling stories through the oral tradition. A literary classic gets a new adaptation. Written roughly 3,000 years ago, the Odyssey is considered one of the foundational works of world literature. The poem follows Odysseus' 10-year journey after the Trojan War, a period in which he faces dangers, loses companions, and tries to make it back to his family. There are high expectations for this production, which brings together one of the most acclaimed directors of our time and a cast of major international renown. The adaptation aims to bring Homer's classic story to a new generation of viewers while preserving the core elements of Greek mythology and the hero's journey. Matt Damon says The Odyssey was the hardest film of his career. Actor Matt Damon, 55, said The Odyssey was the hardest film he's ever made in his entire career. The Oscar winner plays the Greek hero Odysseus in the film adaptation of one of history's most famous poems, and admitted he initially brushed off director Christopher Nolan's warnings about the scale of the challenge, but quickly realized the production would be exhausting. In an interview on the Sunday Sit Down with Willie Geist show, Matt explained, Nolan said, "This film is going to be hard." And I looked at him like, I've made, I don't know, like 80 movies. And he said, no. This film is going to be really hard. And, notably, he wasn't exaggerating. The Hollywood icon added, it was without a doubt the hardest film I've ever made, because it was so ambitious and because of what it was trying to achieve. The prep work and everything I had to do, as a guy in his 50s, was a challenge in itself. It was a burden I had to carry alone. Filming took place on Moroccan beaches, high up in the mountains, or on boats, in unpredictable weather conditions. Matt praised Christopher's example for the crew. There was a lot of physical discomfort. It felt more like an expedition than a movie. Everyone was pushed to the limit of what they could handle. But the good thing is that you look around and see everyone going through it with you. Directing is, without a doubt, the hardest job on a shoot. When you're in the middle of a storm, soaked in cold, thinking, man, I'm so uncomfortable, it helps to look at the person with the toughest job, who looks like a drowned rat, just as cold, just as soaked, but not complaining. 5 years after being chosen to save cinema with Tenet, Christopher Nolan is back to take on the challenge once again, this time with his most epic project to date. Homer's great tale of homecoming remains a foundational text for cinematic storytelling, and Nolan's boundless ambition will celebrate it in true IMAX style. Matt Damon plays the wandering hero Odysseus, and Tom Holland, and Hathaway, Zendaya, Lupita Nyong'o, Robert Pattinson, Charlize Theron, and Jon Bernthal join Nolan's pantheon of gods and humans. Matt Damon reveals how he lost 15 kilograms. For Christopher Nolan's film, the star of The Odyssey revealed he cut gluten from his diet and focused on functional exercise for the role. Matt Damon, 55, underwent a rigorous physical training regimen to play the Greek hero Odysseus in The Odyssey, directed by Christopher Nolan. The actor lost about 15 kilograms for the role in the film, which premieres this Thursday, July 16th. In an interview for the New Heights podcast, hosted by Jason and Travis Kelce, Damon detailed the process. I had this huge beard for about a year. I was in really good shape. I lost a lot of weight. Chris, Nolan, wanted me lean, but strong, he said. The physical transformation was a requirement from the director. To achieve it, the actor followed a strict diet that played a key role in the process. On medical advice, Matt Damon cut gluten completely out of his diet and kept up the habit even after filming Wrapped. The weight loss gave the actor a physique he hadn't had since his school days. I used to weigh between 85 and 90 kilos, and I shot the whole movie at 75. I hadn't been that lean since high school. It took a lot of training and a very strict diet, he said. The physical training was also adapted to avoid injury. The routine focused on functional movements and calisthenics rather than weightlifting. That way, the actor's body gained agility and strength without overloading his joints, something essential for the action sequences. Josh Walsh, Damon's trainer since 2016, explained the routine in an interview with Men's Health. He loves a challenge. We got to the point of doing 100 pull-ups 2 or 3 times a week. We'd figure out how many sets it took to get to 100, he said. According to Walsh, the weight loss made the exercises easier. After he lost some of that extra weight, pull-ups on the bar got a lot easier. He was doing about 30 pull-ups per set. The cast of The Odyssey also includes names like Tom Holland, and Hathaway, and Robert Pattinson. The Odyssey, first critical reactions praise Christopher Nolan's epic, an absolute triumph. International journalists praised the massive IMAX scale, the performances of Matt Damon and Robert Pattinson, and the surprising horror and supernatural tone. The embargo has lifted, and the first reactions from around the world to the Odyssey show that director Christopher Nolan, Oppenheimer, has created another cinematic masterpiece. Screened in exclusive sessions for specialized press in London, since Nolan chose to bar advanced screenings for digital influencers, the film has received widespread praise. Critics unanimously agreed that the film represents the pinnacle of the director's use of IMAX technology, praising the colossal scale, the flawless production design, and, surprisingly, a strong leaning toward horror and supernatural elements in its depiction of Greek mythology's monsters. An IMAX feast with a touch of pure horror. According to Eric Davis of Fandango, the film is an absolute triumph and an extraordinary cinematic achievement. The journalist highlighted how Nolan tackled horror in a way never before seen in his filmography. Some of the film's best moments are genuinely disturbing, adding a new dimension to his filmmaking without ever losing sight of the humanity underlying the story. Stephen Weintraub of Collider echoed that sentiment, urging audiences to see the film in its purest form. If you can, see it in IMAX 70mm. It's a stunning experience. The recontextualizing of Homer's classic epic poem also received high praise. Andrew J. Salazar noted that the director used ancient Greece to address modern wounds. In a world where pride, ego, and a sense of entitlement keep fueling endless wars and bloodshed, Nolan uses Odysseus's ancient journey as a way to ask what it would take for us to truly forgive our past sins. Robert Pattinson steals the spotlight in a star-studded cast. As expected from a production of this caliber, the performances received unanimous praise. Matt Damon was applauded for delivering what might be the best performance of his entire career as the determined Odysseus, while Anne Hathaway and Tom Holland were described as flawless on screen. However, the single standout performance of the night was Robert Pattinson's. The actor plays the villain Antinous and was praised by several critics as the film's most magnetic and entertaining element. He's so cunning, manipulative, and a joy to watch. Pattinson dives completely into the character's villainy, said Eric Davis. Simon Thompson also praised actor John Leguizamo, who is sublime as Eumaeus. Even the somewhat more measured opinions, like David Ehrlich's, who found the script's pacing a bit clunky compared to the director's other classics, acknowledged that the film works as a beautiful, natural thematic continuation of Oppenheimer, and that its third act delivers a massive payoff for the journey. Alright, everyone, that's basically our analysis for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And hit the like button to support the channel. So, basically, I'll say goodbye here, see you in the next video. And until next time.